What's up everyone, Prizmere here. Today we have a big, huge update on the PTS. There's a lot of interesting stuff, but most importantly, it looks like we are getting a 4-star legendary. I'll go through all of the rest of the update, well, the most important stuff really, after this. So firstly, you can see here we have the legendary mods split into different stars here, which is nice. Instead of it being in all just one category, we have 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, and let me enable unlockable, and the 4th star right here. Some of the descriptions are a little bit whack. Some of the stuff is for sure bound to change, but let's get through it. So first and foremost, reduces incoming damage for all teammates. Probably not the greatest one. 50% chance to instantly reload when bashing enemies. I thought this one was quite interesting, especially if you were to have like a slow reloading heavy weapon. But ultimately, you'd probably just want to go with a damaged one, and we'll get to that pretty soon. Melee weapons deal plus 5% bonus damage up to 25% on full stack. It's good, but we'll have some better things later on. When attacking outside of VATS, deal plus 50% bonus weak point damage. This is one of my favorites. It is specifically for non-VATS, and it's specific in terms of having to deal damage to a weak point. It's not going to be the best one that we have in here, but again, since some of these are going to be changed, I'm hoping that this one will be one of the best ones, at least if you're a non-VATS user, and hopefully compete with VATS somehow. This one is weird. Basically, you deal damage when you sprint into targets. I don't know what a full stack means. Like, do you have to sprint into 5 targets to achieve the highest chance? Maybe, I don't know. This one is quite ridiculous. When dealing damage, 50% chance to not use AP. Sounds very OP, but there is an even more overpowered one just under it. Critical hits fully restore AP and health. So basically, if you have a proper build, proper blooded build that is, and you crit every other shot, your HP and AP is going to be fully restored. Basically, you have infinite AP, which means you could even use heavy guns all the time in VATS without having to worry about AP at all. This one, and probably even the one above, I'm sure these are going to get changed. Like, there is no way this will be in the game, right? It would be so ridiculous. And it would just make automatic VATS be even stronger than it is currently. I was hoping we would steer away from the VATS meta. And, you know, luckily, this one does help us with that to a certain extent. But then we have stuff like this, and it's like, come on, what the hell? I mean, I'm a blooded build, and I want to see it kind of even out with other builds, and for VATS to not be as relevant. But yeah. Again, changes. This is not the final product. Everything that you see on the PTS, including the later part of the update that I'm going to go through, all of this is bound to change in some way, shape, or form before it hits live, so just bear that in mind. With a shockwave that stuns nearby targets, good utility, but you just go damage, I think, for most people. The greater number of combat targets around you, the greater your damage output. So this one I was super interested in. It doesn't say how much damage. And I'm thinking if this scales to like over 60%, then this one would be the best for something like queen fights and like earl fight, where you have a lot of enemies around you. If people don't kill them, if you're doing stuff solo, could work as well. Plus 10% melee damage when one or more teammates are nearby. There are better ones, and we'll get to the best ones soon, I think. When crippling limbs, they explode and deal up to 150 explosion damage to nearby targets. Not great damage, but could maybe be fun to use. Cryo on hit that slows targets when dealing damage in VATS. This one was a bit weird because it's VATS only. I was hoping maybe when I read this at first it would be non-VATS only. Then again, maybe that would be OP with heavy guns. Then again, with the other perk you could just use heavy guns in VATS anyway. I don't know. We'll have to see what they come up with. And this one as well. Each worn armor piece reduces the cost of critical hits by 10%, up to minus 50% on full stack. Would this one mean that you crit every single hit? Maybe. I guess we'll have to find out. This is poison damage over time. Don't know the damage on that. This one is kind of redundant. You do have a mutation that takes care of that. I'm also looking at this from an endgame perspective, by the way, just so you know. 25% damage when targeting enemy limbs. Not sure why you would do that unless you want to cripple them like on bosses and stuff. But yeah, not the greatest perhaps. The greater the equipped item condition plus 100%, the greater the weapon damage plus 60%. So this is probably going to be the best one in terms of just flat damage. Reason being, I assume if you use Weapon Artisan to repair your weapons, And then with that, it gets 200% condition that you can use that entire 200 down to 100% and retain this 60% extra damage. So if you just over repair the weapon each time, if you don't mind repairing it frequently, this is going to be very good for damage increase. Probably one of the best ones. Plus 10% damage after each consecutive melee hit on the same combat target, up to 100%. This is the one I was talking about for melee. It depends on what purpose you have with your melee build, but on bosses, I'm pretty sure melee auto axe or chainsaw is best in slot to kill bosses fast now. So this one, imagine 100% extra damage with that. Insane. Movement and sprint speed increased by 5% up to 25%. Irrelevant if you have speed demon because you reach the speed cap anyway, unless they uncap it, I guess, which then you can do some really ridiculous things because you have perk cards with movement speed as well. So they're probably not going to do that. Target is burning, deal plus 50% bonus damage. Would be nice if you have something modded with burning. You can use like Holy Fire, Flamer, Cremator. Gain plus 2 AP regeneration at the cost of rads. Ranged weapons deal 5% bonus damage up to 25% on full stack. This one, I think they mean for bows and crossbows. I don't think they mean ranged guns. Still, I would probably just go with the condition one instead, and you would just have 60% flat damage increase. Return 10% damage received, blah, blah. It's reflective up to 50%. I may say some are not that great, whereas they might actually be, but that's just the way it is. I don't want to drag this out for too long. AP sprinting costs reduced by 200%. I mean, AP sprinting is not really an issue. Like, if you're going to go for a 4-star legendary, you would have a decent build probably. Kind of depends on where they're going to drop from, but yeah, not really an issue. AP cost of VATS attacks reduced by minus 10% up to 50% on full stack. The other ones are better that I showed in the beginning. 50% damage against legendary and raid combatants. Could be an interesting alternative to some of the other ones. Improves weapon recon and stability by 50%. I was thinking maybe for heavy guns, but I don't really have an issue with that. If you want to use something like the railway rifle outside of VATS though, that could be a use case. But would you rather have that or basically 60% more damage? Up to 250 damage and energy resist if you are with teammates within 50-meter radius, so would be good for events or survivability. Standing still nullifies ballistic damage. Kind of irrelevant for me, I don't stand still that frequently. Might be decent on events though. And the last one, when a combat target is poisoned. Okay, so this is like the flamer one or the burning one, but with poison instead. Nice. Yeah, I'm sure you saw a couple of interesting ones, game-breaking ones perhaps, who knows. But I'm glad we do have 4-star legendaries in the game now. I'm glad that they are actually significant stars. I don't think we need more damage in certain builds and in certain situations, but yeah, it kind of is what it is right now. This is bound to change, as I said. Overall, I'm quite happy with what we're seeing, but if there is one change I would like to make, obviously from, apart from balancing these out, because they're totally not balanced right now, I would like to see us kind of steer away from VATS and look at what is currently best in the game. Like on bosses and stuff, you have heavies that are the best, but I do still think you can buff heavies. It's not bad. Auto melee, I don't really think that needs much of a buff. It's already really strong. It's best in slot on bosses. I would like to bring regular weapon usage, like we were talking pistols, even regular rifles, non-automatic, shotguns, ranged weapons. I would like to see that closer to what VATS currently is. Unfortunately, what we have right here, VATS is still going to be absolutely up. And look here, Project Paradise popped up. That's a new mutated event, and we're going to get into that right now. Nice timing, by the way. So let's move on to the rest of the updates. As you just saw, we're getting new public events as mutated events. Project Paradise, that one especially I think is going to be really fun when people actually participate. So that's a good change, adding some more variety into the game. We also have changes with the perks. The most important things here is firstly, rank cost reduction on a lot of the perk cards. Secondly, some of them will scale with different special stats. This one, I did like it as we saw it for endurance. The reason I like that one is because unyielding armor doesn't actually give anything in endurance, but it does give extra stats in all of the other specials. So this, I can only assume, will be a buff to bloodied builds. Not a big fan. And that comes from a bloodied user as well. I do want more balance in the game. We'll see how it plays out though. And lastly, Starched Genes has been moved from luck to endurance. This means if you are maxed out in the luck tree, now you have more points to work with. Next up, we have a whole heap of combat balance changes. So first off here, again, I'm taking the parts that I think look most important. First off, we have a visual change. The screen flash radius has been reduced for explosions. A lot of people over quite a long period of time have been complaining about explosions being too annoying, and well, this is going to help you out if you're one of those people. We also have a whole load of player and NPC weapon changes. So to summarize the player side of things, it seems that non-automatic weapons are getting a significant buff. That's basically going to bring it more in line with auto VATs. These weapons are bows, pistols, shotguns, and that includes the Gauss shotgun, sniper, lever action rifle, pipe weapons, and some more additional weapons. This is a change I definitely appreciate. And then we have some AP cost reductions. These are mainly for heavy guns, which means they are getting buffed. One specific mention here is the plasma caster that was already being used in VATs. Now it's gone from a 30 base AP cost to 18. That's a significant buff, and it's going to make it even more usable than it already was within VATs. We've also got some issues being fixed regarding mutations. They are now more accurately represented. From this, we essentially get some buffs and some nerfs. Overall, a very solid change. This one is mainly regarding the NPC weapon changes. So currently, certain enemies are using player weapons that are scaling up to level 45 and 50, which is the max level for our weapons. They will now have their own weapons scaling all the way to 100. Essentially, they will be more dangerous. And lastly, in this category, we have magazines that are seeing a lot of changes overall. The big ones are going to be Live and Love 3 and Bax Woodman 6 for the people who are using these. They are now going to work as intended, which is a big nerf. On to the last category, which would be other changes. There are two main things here, starting off with Charisma that is no longer going to be capped at 25. It now scales all the way to 100. What that means is you can now reduce the price you pay for an item or the price that you sell an item for even further. So buying and selling prices will be improved. And the very last thing, Gatling Plasma. It's seen some change and you are getting a bunch of new mods for it. You can change the core to give you more ammo, you can get armor penetration, and then you can change more stuff like you can make it into a flamer and whatnot. But one change they've made, instead of just adding these new mods, they changed the beam splitter, so it now fires an additional 4 projectiles instead of having the flame. The flame is now its separate mod. It will be interesting to see how this works with the explosive effect. Maybe it's gonna be strong. It's not gonna be your legacy, I'm pretty sure of that, but it may still be pretty good. So there you have the update parts that I thought was most interesting. Obviously, the 4-star legendary system is going to bring a lot of interesting stuff to the game alone, but we have some other good stuff like the balancing and whatnot. I would say a very thorough and solid update overall. Obviously, as I said before, they are going to change stuff until the actual release date on live. So what you're seeing now is not going to be the end result. With that being said, thank you for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you thumbs it up and comment something, and subscribe if you want to see similar videos in the future. And I will see you next time.